Shalom, miserable humans! As many of you who follow me are aware, there is going to be a live-action remake of The Swan Princess. I know many of you are tired of these remakes, but this one has the potential to be one of the greats because of the fact that the people working on it not only are the ones who worked on the original, but are also people who interact with their fans and listen to their ideas. This is a good thing because of how the public has seen so many live-action remakes and have complained about them either being too different from the original, too similar to the point of being pointless, or just make weird choices that end up hurting the film. So the fact that they listen to their fans is very much a good sign. Besides, despite the results of the universally hated CGI Swan Princess movies, a live-action remake is promising, especially since this is a passion project for them and not just a way to make a quick cash grab. That's what brings us to this video. These are some things I'd love to see in the live-action remake of The Swan Princess. Keep in mind that this is just my personal opinion on things I want to see, therefore not everyone is going to agree with me. Cue the Swan Princess opening intro. As I've mentioned, bad remakes usually fall into one of two categories. They are either so radically different that they aren't even faithful to the spirit of the source material, or just pretty much shot for shot same to the point where they are completely pointless. This is the difficult thing with adapting any work of fiction, especially one that is a beloved property, especially into a different medium. You have to know what iconic moments to do, but also try to make it different enough to where it can be its own thing and justify its existence. I don't want it to be afraid to try different things. A live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast was great and just as good as the original. Yes, I said that. I don't care if you crucify me. But I don't feel like it made enough changes, not to mention some other problems. I hope it takes the same turn that remakes like Cinderella, The Jungle Book, and 101 Dalmatians took by staying true to the source material, but also being different enough to where it's not the exact same thing and can stand on its own. We don't want it to be 100% the same because that's boring and it would have no real point when we'd have the original. One thing that they could do is maybe take deleted scenes from the animated film that are alternate versions of certain scenes. For example, the scene of Derek in the library and Uberta telling him about the ball. It's different and helps to show the relationship between Derek and his mother. It shows how Derek is energized and quick-witted, while when he's not doing things like saying things like,
what else is there?
It's very fun and is able to show how Uberta can be a mother that uses guilt to get what she wants from her son. Besides, there's no way for live action to capture the amazingness that is Uberta's lip thing. That's something that can only be captured in animation, and attempting to do it in live action would just be disappointing. That's just one example of using an alternative version of scenes from the movie, which are different but still charming in their own way. Another thing they could do is incorporate more elements from the original ballet, Swan Lake. I'll get more into certain elements connected to that later, but it would show how it's not only trying to respect the animated film, but also the source material that led to the beloved animated film. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about something that could be very triggering, so if you're uncomfortable with hearing anything like that, please skip to this part in the video. In the original ballet, if the vow of everlasting love failed, Odette wouldn't die, but instead she and the other swan maidens that Rothbard had cursed would become swans forever come daybreak, and never would be able to change back into humans again like they were able to before. Odette decided she would rather die than be a swan forever, so she and her prince, named Siegfried in the ballet, committed suicide, and that act of love was strong enough to destroy Rothbard and all of his magic. This led to the Swan Maidens being able to become human forever, and the two lovers dance off into heaven together. Let let me be very clear about something. I'm not suggesting that they do this ending for the live-action remake because that wouldn't work over well with audiences. However, something they could consider doing is that instead of Odette dying if Derek makes his vow to the wrong girl, have her become a permanent swan. I don't just mean have her physical form stay that of a swan, but also have her end up losing her human mind. Before this, she had full control of her human mind in her animal form, but with Derek's vow of everlasting love failing, she'd revert to that of a dumb and witless animal. It would have her die in a different sense, and maybe it would help represent Derek realizing even more what he loved about her. It would be painful because she'd be gone even though she was still alive, which can sometimes be even more devastating than death. Now, this is just a suggestion, and I wouldn't mind if they just decide to have her die like she did in the original movie. Besides, there would be a happy ending anyway. That's what is important. An advantage that live-action movies have over animation is that they can be longer than just an hour and a half, so they can expand on certain elements. We could see Odette and Derek maybe meeting in secret over the course of a few nights, after Odette manages to reveal the swan spell to Derek, of course, to help their relationship and chemistry feel more organic and natural. The romance in the original was great, but there is always room for improvement no matter how amazing something is. Other elements could be expanded upon, like actually showing Odette's mother and her giving birth to Odette, as well as King William and his wife longing for a child. Live-action remakes from Disney seem to have a thing for actually talking about the deceased mothers and even showing them interacting with their child. True, Odette's mother would have died after childbirth, but it would add something with how protective William is of Odette, and even adding a song for the Queen to sing, which I'll elaborate later when I talk about the music. Odette's swan necklace could even have originally belonged to her mother rather than being a gift from Derek when she was an infant. It would help give her more of a connection to her dead mother and wanting to be a strong and kind leader like her mother was. They should also show more of Odette's sorrow and trauma from her father being killed by her kidnapper and not being able to hug him, say goodbye, or tell him that she loved him one last time. Her love for her father, as well as for her people, would give her strength whenever Rothbard would try to break her down. She'd stay strong and wouldn't back down. They should also try to make it clear that Derek really isn't shallow, but rather he just has a hard time expressing himself into words. That's the way I always saw Derek, and I think to help the audience identify more with him, that they should do a better job of making that clear. They should also show more subtle hints of Odette and Derek liking each other as kids, but not being mature enough to admit it to others, especially to themselves. Overall, this remake shouldn't fall into the same trap a lot of remakes do of basically being just shot for shot. Don't be afraid to make changes, but also stay true to the spirit of the original. With this being a musical, it's important for me to talk about the music for the live-action remake. A complaint the musical live-action remakes from Disney get are that they aren't energized enough and aren't as big and grand as they were in the animated movies. In certain musical numbers, I can see where they're coming from. Musicals are a very stylized medium, which require big dance numbers and a chorus with a lot of energy, especially in numbers like No More Mr. Nice Guy, This Is My Idea, and Princesses on Parade. When making the original movie, they used a lot of choreography that was Broadway styled. That's something they should do with musical numbers in the live-action remake. I don't mean copy the exact same choreography that the animated movie did, but still put a lot of energy in it. Look at musicals like Jingle Jangle, A Christmas Journey, The Greatest Showman, Disney's Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, Moulin Rouge, Newsies, and any musical with the great dancing talents of Judy Garland, Gene Kelly, and Dick Van Dyke. They have a lot of energy in the musical numbers with elaborate dances that get the audience pumped and excited because of how fun and vibrant they are. Now, big dance numbers aren't something required for all the musical numbers, like Far Longer Than Forever, which is more romantic and intimate, but should still have stunning visuals, which I'll get more into when I talk about the visuals of the film. It could also take certain songs and make them different. The song Practice, 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 for example, which is played as a comedic number, could be a song song for Uberta. It could be used to show how she's concerned about her son and how he's obsessed with practicing and trying to find Odette, which everyone, herself included, considers an endless path because Odette is believed to be dead. It would help to show the relationship between her and her son. She'd be questioning what she should do and what her late husband, who is most likely less pushy and more understanding than her, might have done if he was still here. True, it would require the song to have more lyrics to it and be longer, but it would be a welcome change. While the song is great and a lot of fun, it's utterly pointless when you think about it. Plus, the physical comedy of it wouldn't work for a live-action remake. This would be taking a short, slapstick song and making it different, meaningful, and adding something to both the characters of Uberta and Derek, showing Uberta's love and concern for her son, as well as Derek's stubbornness, determination, not to mention his skills. Plus, considering my fancast for Queen Uberta is Kristen Chenoweth, you know that she better be getting her own musical number, and not getting the short end of the stick like Audra McDonald in Beauty and the Beast. Another song that could be used differently is the song No Fear. When I discuss the tone of the film, I will elaborate on why the animal sidekicks shouldn't be in the live-action remake, even though I love them. In the live-action movie, it could go one of two ways. Either a solo for Odette showing her courage as she sets out to find Derek, or it could be a duet between both Odette and Derek as they set off to find each other, as well as Derek's hunt for the great animal. Something important to discuss is the song This Is My Idea. Apart from Far Longer Than Forever, it's the most iconic song in the movie that people just adore. What definitely needs to be made clear is that they need to get child actors that not only look like the actors that are playing the adult versions of Odette and Derek, but can also actually act and sing. I don't want to hear any lame excuses that they are kids and we shouldn't expect great acting from them, because there are plenty of amazing child actors that give it their all. Besides, one of the things that made the song so awesome was that the younger versions of the two leads were full of so much personality and energy. They really need some strong child actors that can capture the spirit of the song, not to mention make sure that they can sing, which is something they need for all of the actors in general. With no more Mr. Nice Guy, with the tone I have in mind for the film, which again I will get to soon, probably would make the jazzy styled song feel out of place. I mean, I still want it to be energized and also fit with Rothbart's character. I'm thinking maybe a style that is similar to the overture of Phantom of the Opera or In the Dark of the Night from Anastasia. Those are musical styles that are more serious in tone, but are still fun and energized, which will help bring the song to life in a new way, as well as showing that they are growing with their audience. It would show him causing chaos, but not so comedically, but also not entirely serious. Odile should also be allowed to sing a little for this song. In fact, I have a particular moment in mind. I'm imagining with the line that at first it's Odile's real voice, but she holds out the word bringer and her voice transitions to Odette's voice. That would be really fun and creative. Of course, with this being a live-action remake, it will need to add more songs to the film, especially since you gotta think about that Best Original Song nomination. However, it needs to be careful about where the songs are placed. It can't be too soon after the previous song, or feel like they came out of nowhere. One song I think they could add is a lullaby that Odette's mother sings to her infant daughter as she slowly dies. I think it should have lyrics that foreshadow the events of the film and the journey that Odette will have in the same way that the song All Is Found did in Frozen 2. It should also add a solo for Odette, maybe a song for her to sing when she's escaping from Rothbart's prison and flying to the ball, that is similar to the song Speechless from the 2019 live-action remake of Aladdin. Another song could be a short one that is meant to be Odile just vocalizing like a siren to scare the carriage drivers. The way I see it, she's flying around in her animal form, a black swan, singing to give them a feeling of unease and catch them off guard, while occasionally flying fast close by to scare them for fun, all leading up to the reveal of her human form and then the attack of the great animal, which should remain in the shadows until the climax. Maybe even a possible duet between Odette and Odile to show how opposite and similar they are. Just a few suggestions. The The last thing involving the music that I will talk about is the instrumental music. I want them to have the movie mix 3 types of music: the music from the original movie, the music from the original Swan Lake, and original music like in the live-action concept trailer. Something the film is criticized for is not having any of Tchaikovsky's music from the ballet when the film is based on the ballet. I do agree with people that it's very strange, especially since even products of lesser quality and budget have even used music from Tchaikovsky. However, there are iconic instrumental moments from the movie that I can't imagine the film being without, especially the music for Odette's transformation. Disney also seems to have a thing for adding new instrumental music to their remakes, like in Cinderella, Mulan, 101 Dalmatians, and The Jungle Book, while still including music from the original animated films. So it would be amazing for them to use all 3 types of music for the remake to show that they're respecting the animated film, showing respect to the source material that led to the creation of the beloved animated film, and doing something new. True, it will be hard to make sure they all mesh together naturally, but it's not impossible. Also, they need to have Coco Jones and Jordan Fisher sing the end credit version of Far Longer Than Forever because, well, just listen. This is one of the most important things about a film, especially when adapting a beloved property, particularly into a new medium like live action. I do want the tone of the film to be more serious than the animated film, but I don't want it to be so serious to where it's too dark, too grounded in reality, and would feel out of place as a musical. Being too dark and serious seems to be a trend with some childhood properties that really have no real understanding of the source material, as proven with shows like Riverdale, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and Fate the Winx Saga. Trying to be all serious limits them too much in quote-unquote reality, and therefore can't go too far with being stylized and art as memorable. This is also something that goes hand in hand with the visuals, which I will get to later on. However, there are some things in the original movie that should be taken out for the live-action remake, the main thing being the animal sidekicks. Don't get me wrong, I love those characters dearly, but their sense of humor wouldn't work in a live-action setting. Their style of humor is similar to that of the Looney Tunes, which works in animation, but not in a live-action remake. They'll feel out of place and cause the tone of the film to feel unbalanced. This is also why I don't think the hag, later named Bridget, would work in the live-action remake, but I'll get to that later. Jean Bob, Speed, and Puffin are iconic and beloved characters that do progress the plot and don't feel like needless comic relief, but they wouldn't work in live action. They'd feel out of place, come off as if they're hijacking the film, but likely look weird in CGI, especially Jean Bob, and removing them would allow the film to have more time to expand on other elements. The film should still have humor, but it should come from things like Roger's dry wit, Huberta's pompous and flamboyant personality, Chamberlain playing off of Huberta with his nervous and silly character, while not being too silly, Derek being charmingly humorous and playing off of Rogers, Odette's savage comments to Rothbard in the way she rejects him and stands up to him, and her general wit, Rothbard's dark humor, and Odile being a major sass master with a lot of sarcasm and clever lines that could rival that of Regina and Zelena from Once Upon a Time.
You went to a long-dead octopus for advice, and you're going to blame me for your problems? Put her down. For what? You'll smite me with your book learning.
This film should have a balance of romance, being serious but comedic without doing too much of either, having fantasy, being like a fairy tale, staying true to the original while being its own thing, and just being what the film needs to be. It needs to appeal to the fans while also trying to win over people who aren't really a fan of the original movie. It basically needs to do what a good remake needs to be, which can be done when you look at the example of the 2015 version of Cinderella. Also, don't make any pop culture references like the CGI movies do, which instantly dates the movie. Many of you are already aware of how I'm really crazy about the idea of Rothbart's daughter from the original ballet Swan Lake, Odile, being in the live-action remake. It honestly would be a welcome change for so many reasons. A lot of fans are wanting to see Odile appear in the live-action remake, so that is one reason to include her. There's just so much potential with her. However, before I get into her potential, I need to discuss why it makes more sense for her to be in the movie instead of Bridget. The Black Swan is supposed to act seductive and also give Derek some hesitation to show that he has a feeling that something isn't right. It shows how he isn't interested in Odette because of her looks. This makes more sense with Odile because her behavior and mannerisms should be more like her own rather than like Odette's, which doesn't work with Bridget. In all the scenes that Bridget is in, she's very comedic, wacky, silly, and over the top in her behavior and mannerisms. That makes her entertaining, but it doesn't make sense in the context of the Black Swan trick. It kind of hurts Derek's character by having him so easily fooled and not hesitating enough. Don't get me wrong, he does hesitate, but it could have been a lot better, just an observation of mine. Now for her potential, which she really has a lot of. She's a seductive and sensual woman that is also a sorceress. I imagine her being very clever, sassy, sarcastic, and just has a badass aura about her. Her personality would basically be Shigo from Kim Possible. She should really go one of two ways, either a full-blown villainess or an anti-hero with a possible redemption arc like the witch from the live-action remake of Mulan. She's a fascinating character that would help bring a layer of depth to Rothbart by having a great love for his daughter, and while he is motivated by greed and power, he is also motivated by his love for his daughter and wanting her not to struggle in life like he did and be able to have all the opportunities that any princess or queen would have. If they made her an anti-hero with a redemption arc, it could be because she slowly grows a bond with Odette in relating to how they have loving but protective fathers and never actually really knowing their mothers. She'd think men were all the same and would be confused why Derek would hesitate when she's disguised as Odette, because she was unaware of genuine romantic love due to always using her looks and sensuality on men to get what she and her father want. Maybe she could take the place of Bromley by helping Derek with defeating her father. When she dances with Derek, it should feel different for him compared to how it felt when he danced with the real Odette. Both should be elegant and vibrant, but done differently. When Derek dances with the real Odette, it should be more intimate, while with Odile disguised as Odette, it's more sensual and makes Derek feel like something is off about quote-unquote Odette. Either way, she'd make for an incredibly compelling character that would help add an element from the original ballet to the film and be something different. Odile is a popular character in the world of fiction, especially for those fascinated with ballet. She's meant to be Odette's opposite, and yet they could have a connection the same way that Mulan and the Witch did in the live-action remake of Mulan. I imagine they'd have a relationship similar to Kim Possible and Shigo, where they are enemies but have a mutual respect for each other and have amazing banter.
Welcome, Kimmy. May I take your coat? You already did. Don't worry. It'll look better on me. Face it, Pumpkin. Fashion isn't the only thing in which I'm a step ahead. Lesson time, princess! With that trendy coat weighing you down? I'm thinking not.
I also have made it very clear that the only real choice for Odile is Bella Thorne. She has the right look, she's sexy and seductive, she's gorgeous. She's an amazingly talented and versatile actress. She can sing, listen to the songs she did for Midnight Sun if you don't believe me, has experience playing villainous characters, really puts her all into her craft, and everyone who has worked with her has just raved about what a joy she is to work with and what a brilliant talent she is. There are a lot of things to talk about here. The costumes, the effects, camera work, the sets, the atmosphere, and so on. I'll try to be as clear and organized in this section as possible. The costumes are a major part of the movie because they help establish the characters' personalities and the journey they go through. I do think the outfits should be as similar to their animated counterparts as possible, but also not look too similar to the point where they just look like really good cosplay cosplays. Something live-action remakes often do is change the look of the outfit to the point where they are completely different. This isn't necessarily a bad thing because it can help the film stand out, especially when you look at the outfits of the 2015 version of Cinderella. However, it can just as often be a bad thing, such as Belle's yellow dress in the 2017 remake of Beauty and the Beast, which doesn't even do a very good job with her pink and green dresses either. But her blue dress and her wedding dress were good. I can understand why changing the design of the costumes happens because some things that look good in a drawing don't translate well into live action. However, when done well, they can make them look similar enough and add details that are too expensive and time-consuming to put into animation. A good example of this is Jasmine's turquoise outfit in the live-action remake of Aladdin. It looks similar enough while also being a good translation to the real world. Although, I do think they should take more liberties with Rothbart's outfit to make it look more badass. Not to mention, they'd have created liberties with Odile, but should make sure there is a contrast with her appearance and Odette's. But Odile should have a wide variety of outfits and hairstyles because she's just fabulous. Another thing about the costumes is that I want the characters to have a variety of outfits to wear. It's true that Odette would be wearing the same dress for a majority of the film because of how she's been kidnapped and wouldn't give Rothbart the satisfaction of accepting any outfits he might offer her, though magical dresses or fantasy dresses could work. However, considering that the majority of the characters are either royalty or well off enough to afford some good clothes, they really should be wearing more than just one outfit. Queen Uberta in particular would be wearing a large variety of outfits, not just the same outfit in a different color, and maybe even different hairstyles. It would go with her flamboyant personality and unforgettable style. The younger versions of Derek should also be wearing different outfits and have different hairstyles like Odette did. It shows how people grow and change as they get older. Maybe even make Derek have an awkward phase as a teenager the same way Odette did as a preteen. However, definitely don't have his younger versions wear the exact same outfit because it's weird that he never changed his style at all growing up. Plus, I think the entire fandom agrees that Derek's weird haircut
Gotta go!
I'll get more into the costumes when I discuss the diversity because what I have left to say about the costumes has to do with Princesses on Parade. As for the effects, I'm hoping that they will do their best to mix practical effects and special effects together. Hollywood is too reliant on CGI and people often call it out as looking fake. There are movies that mix those together, like Lord of the Rings, Hocus Pocus, Jim Carrey's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the version of which is starring Angelica Houston, and the first Jurassic Park movie. The effects of those movies are still praised because they aren't reliant on just CGI. It can be helpful, but it shouldn't be the only thing that is used. Something important about the visual look of this movie, at least to me, is Odette's transformation. A problem I have with the CGI movies and the concept trailer, although I will give it leeway because it didn't have much of a budget for the effects, is how Odette's transformation lacks color, which makes it feel a lot less magical. People love Odette's iconic transformation with the gold glowing light where she stands, or floats in the case of her swan form, and is getting surrounded by pink and purple water. It's such a beautifully animated scene because of the vibrant colors that pop in the nighttime setting that is full of different shades of blue. By making the transformation have normal colored water just makes it feel not as memorable or imaginative. The look of Odette as a swan, as well as Odile in her literal black swan form, should still be expressive and slightly stylized like the animals in the Chronicles of Narnia movies, the 2016 live-action remake of The Jungle Book, and the live-action Stuart Little movies. It'll make her feel more human, and if they were to use the idea about Odette losing her humanity if Derek makes his vow to the wrong girl, it would show her looking and feeling more like a dumb and witless animal by becoming less stylized and more realistic as she loses her humanity. But definitely make sure that there is texture to her feathers and bill. Basically, make sure she doesn't look fake, but not too realistic to the point where she can't be stylized a little. In other words, don't make the same mistake that the pointless quote-unquote live-action remake of The Lion King did. Something else important to talk about is the look of the great animal. First of all, I think the way the great animal looks should be kept a secret until the climax when Derek is fighting Rothbart. This includes commercials, trailers, and any other promotional material because it'll make an even bigger impact if no one has any any idea what it looks like until the very moment they see it on the big screen. As for the design of it, the original movie had a very interesting design, with it being a combination of different animals. The head of a wolf, the wings and snout of a bat, the talons of some kind of fierce bird, the tail of a lizard, and the torso of a bear. Not sure if this would work in live action. It might have done right, but if it can't, they could get creative with a new design, making it look like some demonic creature or something. Either way, I'm sure it'll be awesome, but definitely be open to the possibility of a completely new design. With the sets and such, I want them to be absolutely massive. As I mentioned before, some live action remakes don't have things on as big a scale as they were in the animated movie. For example, when you compare the ballroom scene in Beauty and the Beast, the live action remake doesn't really look nearly as grand as the original did, and was a much smaller scale. I hope that they go all out with the sets and make it feel big, grand, and epic. It will especially help with the Princesses on Parade scene. Even with Rothbart's castle, which would look more decayed, should have an eerie feel to it with a lot of dark colors to contrast with Uberta's castle and the castle from Odette's kingdom. The visuals also shouldn't be afraid to not be vibrant enough, because just earth tones are boring and not as eye-catching. The look of the live-action concept trailer has a good look, at least for the night scenes. The visuals and colors aren't too dark, had a mysterious atmosphere. It was pleasant to look at. It would make Rothbart and Odile's magic really pop because of how their magic has warm colors to contrast with the cool colors of their setting, and would show a contrast to the world that Odette was used to before she was cursed. How she could feel the warm sun on her skin and that refreshing daylight breeze blowing through her hair. It'll make when the spell is broken all the more meaningful, because she'll be able to experience all those senses she missed so much when she was a human that could enjoy the daylight. They definitely need to take advantage of the landscapes as well, since many scenes take place outside. As for the camera work, it's very important to have a lot of interesting angles, dynamic movements, and pleasant shots. They shouldn't go too crazy with the camera work to the point where it is annoying and messy, but they should have fun with it, such as when Odette is flying in the air. They need to take advantage of that. The musical and dance sequences need to have some fun camera work. With something like Far Longer Than Forever, they should keep it intimate but also creative and interesting, not to mention have it look visually stunning with the stars, the moon, and how in some scenes that Derek is inside where there is light to contrast with the nighttime setting where Odette is. The action scenes should definitely be creative, like when Derek is using his bow and arrow, not to mention have the climax be epic. A particular camera work I want them to do is to slowly reveal the face of the Black Swan at the ball when she arrives. Yes, we know it's Odile disguised as Odette, but playing with the camera to not reveal her face until she's close enough to Derek will make it more exciting, similar to the way that Cruella was slowly revealed during her introduction in the live-action remake of 101 Dalmatians. That just helps with great storytelling. First of all, listen to me before you pass judgment. I'm not saying for them to race bend characters, especially since many people of color are seen through that as a, no pun intended, skin-deep gesture that's just for brownie points. However, I want the background characters to have a lot of diversity with races, the same way that movies like the live-action remakes of Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella did. One of the great things about the original animated film was that even though it was about white people, it still had racially diverse people in the background. They weren't just there as servants or peasants, but also as royalty and nobility. There were people that looked black, Hispanic, mixed, and it was just for the heck of it, which I love. It shows that the movie is stylized and acknowledges that people of color do exist, something certain movies fail to do. However, I want them to take it a step further by not only having the background characters / extras be racially diverse, only include more than just blacks and Hispanics, but also show diversity in culture at the ball. What I mean is that the princesses attending the ball in the hopes of winning Derek's heart art should be racially and culturally diverse. The live-action remake of Cinderella did this, particularly with this one Hispanic princess that had a very cultural-looking dress, which was absolutely gorgeous. There were some princesses in the animated movie that were people of color, but they were just wearing European clothes. They need to show some diversity for different racial cultures, even if it is just for the balls/princesses on parade. After all, the first line of the song did say,
Every single princess on the planet prayed to be invited to the ball.
so it should be showing different cultures around the world with these princesses. I mean, Uberta would definitely be inviting princesses from every kingdom far and wide in hopes of finding Derek a wife. Besides, she never does anything without being absolutely big and grand. Not only should there be diversity on screen, there needs to be diversity behind the scenes. The Swan Princess tried to show some cultural diversity in the movie Kingdom of Music, and it was clearly made by people who knew nothing of these cultures. They had racial stereotypes and stereotypes of people from different nationalities. I'm sure that their hearts were in the right place and had zero intention of being offensive, but the result was very offensive, and that's what actually matters. This time, I want them to have experts of the cultures to make the outfits, hairstyles, jewelry, and the makeup be as accurate as possible. Besides, as much trouble as actors that are people of color have finding work, people of color that work behind the scenes have even more difficult time finding work, especially those who are women. I'm sure the people working behind the Swan Princess will be willing to listen to this because they love their fans and hearing their ideas and concerns. So I'm sure they'd be willing to do all they can to be as inclusive as possible on screen and behind the scenes. Something the rest of you humans should do. Okay, this is something that will be a bit difficult to talk about due to it being a bit controversial. First of all, Odette was already a strong and feminist character. She was kind but had her limits, wasn't afraid to stand up to Rothbard, but could still show her vulnerability like any normal person, and actually was deconstructing fairy tale cliches long before Elsa in Frozen ever did.
You're beautiful.
Thank you. But what else?
What else?
Is beauty all that matters to you?
In most fairy tales, once the character falls in love, they just get married and all that jazz. However, Odette, despite falling in love with Derek, wasn't just going to jump into marriage right away. First, she wanted to know what he loved about her besides just her beauty, which is very reasonable. She wasn't just gonna let herself be seen as a prize to be won or someone who was just supposed to look beautiful. She wanted to be admired for her mind and personality, as well as to make herself be heard. You can see the disapproving look her father gave her after she asked Derek if beauty was all that mattered to him, but she still didn't back down, despite her father basically telling her to stop. She cared about her father's legacy and the people of her kingdom, which is why she wasn't going to give in to Rothbard and would rather die than give him her father's kingdom. It wasn't just because she hated the man, even though she clearly was justified in her hatred. She was thinking of others. During her year of being under Rothbard's captivity, she never relented or lost her strength. Some may say that she just waited around to be saved and could have just left to get help / find Derek. However, this statement is absolutely wrong. She was in a situation where she really couldn't do much. As soon as the moonlight left Swan Lake, she turned back into a swan, and it didn't matter where she was. She had no idea where she was or how to get back to Derek's kingdom. If she were to try to run away, she'd get lost and turn back into a swan. Even if she were to use her ability to fly in swan form, she'd be exposed to hunters that could kill her before she could find help. In both her human form and her swan form, she'd be vulnerable to predators, especially in her human form. She wasn't someone who just had the mindset of waiting around in the hopes of being saved. She was way too smart for that. She was just in a situation where she was trapped and didn't have many options until she and Puffin thought of trying to steal a map from Rothbard's castle. If she saw a way to save herself, she'd take it, but she's smart enough not to rush into anything without a plan that would just get her killed. This is all leading to the subject of organic feminism. The Disney live-action remakes have been trying to make their female characters stronger even if they were already strong. For the most part it works, except for when it doesn't. You have Mulan already being incredibly skilled and pretty much magical to where she becomes a Mary Sue that is the worst part of the movie. Nala losing all of her likability and emotion of her character. She doesn't even act happy when she sees Simba is alive. Alice being made as a warrior and losing her interesting and curious personality. And the disaster that is the Maleficent movies that speak for themselves in all their awfulness. They need to stay true to the character of Odette. They can improve upon her, but make sure she's flawed and has depth like a real person, not just generically nice all the time and not perfect at everything. One of the best things about the people that work on the Swan Princess movies is that they never forget to appreciate their fans. They interact with them in real life and online. They even follow me on Instagram, which is awesome. They do a lot for their fans, which is something a lot of companies don't really do unless it means they can make money. Anyway, something I think they should do is allow fans to be part of the making of the film. For example, have the amazing Nephi Garcia, also known as Designer Daddy, being in charge of the costumes. He has made some incredible cosplay outfits that aren't just good by the standards of cosplay, but also by the standards of a big budget film. He managed to make outfits that look accurate to the animated film, but also update them enough to translate well into real life. He would be the perfect person to work on the costumes of the film. It would really help him get more recognition and maybe get work in Hollywood as a costume designer. Plus, I really want to see how he would handle the costumes for Uberta, Odile, and the princesses at the ball during Princesses on Parade. Another example is that I would love to have my friend Anna, also known as the Eternal Diva, be the one to sing the end credit version of Eternity. Also, go support her on her YouTube channel because she has an absolutely amazing voice and is criminally underrated. Trust me, her voice will give you chills. Link will be up in the cards. You won't regret it. Another thing is that they could include fans as extras in the background, including as dancers and singers. It would show how they know that they wouldn't be anywhere without their fans and are showing their appreciation. I would personally love to be one of the directors and writers of the film, and I would work my tail off to make sure that this film was nothing less than Oscar worthy and something that does absolute justice to the original movie that I love so dearly. In fact, the original Swan Princess is actually one of my favorite movies. I'd even settle for being a casting director, since I've made my casting choices very clear. I know that me working on this film is unlikely, but if they are willing to let me, I would accept without hesitation. After all, I know that Richard Rich was a newcomer when making the original film, and I know that he would want to do all he can to help new talent make their dreams come true, especially when they are fans of what was his passion project known as the Swan Princess. Plus, having the creators and the fans all come together to make a live-action adaptation of such an iconic and beloved film would just be absolutely beautiful. First of all, this is not me telling you who I would cast in the film. I've already done videos where I explain my personal casting choices. What I want to talk about with this is that I want them to cast actors that look as much like the characters as possible. While talent is what is most important, with a live-action remake of an animated property, we want actors that look like the characters as well because we want to see the characters brought to life as much as possible. Don't just choose actors based on on bringing in the box office numbers, even though that is important as well, but base the casting on looks, acting talent, being able to capture the essence of the character, singing talent, making sure that the two leads can handle the vocal demands of their respective roles, and that they are the right age, or at least look the right age. They should also include cameos from people like Liz Calloway, Howard McGillen, and other cast members from the original animated film. It would just be a fun thing to do for the fans and a way of honoring these actors for helping to bring the original movie to life. In fact, they should make Howard McGillen be Derek's deceased father. It would be a really amazing callback to the original movie. Not to mention that Howard McGillen and my fan cast for Derek Kalina, actually look like they could be father and son. I also think they should have Liz Calloway do the prologue for the film, which would be an awesome way of the original passing on the torch to the new. Lastly, as a minor but important thing, they should do things to honor Odette's original voice actress, the late Michelle Nicastro, who sadly passed away on November 4th, 2010 from breast and brain cancer. One thing being that Odette's mother should be named Michelle. A more serious thing is at the end of the credits they should say that the film is dedicated to Michelle, similar to how at the end of Beauty and the Beast, Disney had a dedication made to the late Howard Ashman. Lastly, the movie should be released in October to help bring attention to Breast Cancer Awareness Month. These are things that I think would be wonderful ways of honoring the original voice actress that helped bring the Swan Princess herself to life. And there you have it. This is what I want to see in the live-action remake of the Swan Princess. In the description, you will find links to the official social media accounts of the Swan Princess, links to Designer Daddy's social media accounts, links to the Eternal Diva social media accounts, and information how you can actually ask the people working on the Swan Princess movies a question. What do you guys think of my video? Did you agree with anything? What would you like to see in the live-action remake? Let me know in the comments. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm the Wicked Merman from Under the Sea.